Technology, like humans, is ever evolving, and the gadgets we are using today might just become totally obsolete tomorrow. Granted, most of the new tech is replacing clunky and inefficient old gadgets, making our lives a whole lot easier. For example, phones have come a long way. Back in the day, they were little boxes nailed to some wall in the house, or sitting on a table in some corner, and they were useless if not connected to a grid through some wires. Even their use was quite limited, as you could only make or receive calls and nothing else. Then came the cell phones, which resided in our pockets and were usable anywhere we went, not just in our homes. Now, we could even send and receive text messages on top of phone calls. We pushed this technology even further, and ultimately smartphones became common. And today, a phone is just a fraction of the capabilities of these powerful devices. So it's a good thing that technology is advancing at such a great pace. The world economy and the lifestyle of the global population is getting better day by day, thanks to this rapid progress. But as humans, we have been very reckless. We are very eager to make the next leap forward, excited to get into the future, but we are not preserving our present, which will become history very soon. We need to keep in mind the fact that there won't be a future without a history. Let's take a camera for example. Back in the day, the photos you took with a camera were printed on paper, a physical medium. Now, all the photos we take are stored in the form of ones and zeros. The computers, cameras, smartphones, and other display devices have no problem reading these ones and zeros and showing us the images. But what if, in the future, they are not able to do so? The software and hardware we use are both changing rapidly, and our support for legacy use cases is lagging far behind. Ever since the invention of computers, the ways to store data on them have constantly evolved. Initially, we used punch cards to store data, followed by magnetic tapes, floppy disks, hard drives, optical storage like CDs and DVDs, and now SSDs, and of course, the cloud. The transition wasn't happening in a vacuum. Newer and newer data was being created alongside this transition, and not all the data found its way to the next storage medium. You might have come across a cassette at some point in your life. There might be a masterpiece movie recorded on that tape, but you cannot watch it because you don't have access to a cassette player. And just like that, this media is lost forever. The loss of data might eventually become so significant that the evidence of us ever existing might just never be found. All the records of our transactions, important world events, and our achievements are in digital form. Archaeologists in the future might dig up some smartphone from some site, but will have no way of accessing the information stored inside of it. This phenomenon is called a digital dark age, and just like any other dark age, there will be no physical evidence of our existence or our lives. Now, with an ever-increasing reliance on cloud storage and computing, this threat of an impending dark age is getting even closer to becoming a reality. You see, with services like Netflix, Steam, and Spotify, we don't really own anything. All these movies, songs, games, etc. are owned by these corporations. And if history has anything to teach us, it's that nothing is permanent in this world. What happens if these companies go out of business? All the movies on Netflix servers will be wiped out of existence. The examples I'm giving are of movies and games, and although they are not scientific research papers, they are art. Art has always been an important part of history. Art is used to define cultures and societies, so preserving them is synonymous with preserving our identities. The video game industry has been the worst offender in this sense. Over 900 games were released on PlayStation 1, and over 4,000 games were released on PlayStation 2. How many of these games are playable today on PlayStation 5? And that's just one platform. Never mind the consoles from Nintendo, Microsoft, Sega, and others. And even the games released throughout the several generations of PCs. So the future might just be closer to the interpretation in Horizon Zero Dawn. Maybe there won't be cars flying around in a utopia on some other galaxy. Maybe we'll just go back to living in the caves. I've only been talking about entertainment and the like, but what about all the advances we are making in science? Most of our knowledge is being stored digitally. So what will happen if we cannot retrieve this knowledge to teach future generations? When I was in school, we were taught to do arithmetic manually and weren't allowed to use a calculator until we reached grade 7th. Now, kids are usually encouraged to use a calculator by grade 4th. My theory is that every passing generation is relying on technology more and more. I mean, who is making these calculators? Humans? Robots? Where is the manual to operate, maintain, and repair these robots being stored? What will happen if access to these manuals is lost? Are our manufacturing processes sustainable then? If not, then where are we headed? If you ask me, the roadmap back to the caves couldn't be any clearer. Now what if this isn't the first time this is happening? We've had dark ages before. So much of our history is a mystery to us. What if some of these dark ages, maybe not all of them, were digital? Was the History Channel wrong? What if the Stonehenge, the pyramids, the Göbekli Tepe were made by advanced human civilizations, with access to similarly advanced technology? We have legends and myths about ancient civilizations that would conform to this theory. The magic spells of the ancients could just be a syntax of a computer command in the clouds. After all, magic is believed to be science's ultimate form. I mean, we have been on this planet for thousands of years, and only in the last 200 years have we made significant progress. The math doesn't really add up. History could just be repeating itself. After all, that is what it does.